Something strange happens only the Bible can explain. Have you ever heard the story of David and Goliath? It's one of the most well-known tales in the Bible, and for good reason. Goliath, a towering Philistine warrior, challenged the Israelite army to a one-on-one battle, and no one was brave enough to face him, except for a young shepherd boy named David. With just a sling and a few stones, David took down the heavily armored giant and proved that even the strongest foes can be defeated with faith, courage, and a little bit of ingenuity. Stick around to learn more about this incredible true story that only the Bible can explain. The emergence of Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, is recorded in the book of 1 Samuel 17:4, which describes his impressive height as 6 cubits and a span. This measurement system is different from modern units of feet and inches, but it is estimated that Goliath was at least 9 feet 9 inches tall. His long arms, which he would lift above his head, added to his imposing presence. Goliath was heavily armed, wearing a bronze helmet weighing 5,000 shekels and a suit of scale armor. He carried a bronze javelin, metal greaves, and a weaver's rod-like spear shaft with a 600 shekel iron point. These details are described in 1 Samuel 17:5-7 NIV. The Philistines had a warming-up routine that involved wearing a large canvas-like undergarment with overlapping bronze ringlets. This coat of mail offered protection from enemy weapons and weighed 5,000 shekels of bronze, which is equivalent to 175 to 200 pounds from shoulder to knee. Goliath, on the other hand, donned a helmet and leggings made of bronze, along with shin protectors called greaves. He also carried a hefty spear or javelin made of bronze, which he slung between his shoulders. The spearhead alone weighed a whopping 600 shekels of iron, or approximately 20 to 25 pounds. According to the written record, he strode forward with a companion carrying an oversized battle shield designed to protect his entire body. In addition to his formidable body armor, Goliath had a shield bearer racing ahead of him, brandishing a shield the size of a grown man. It's hard to fathom the terror that anyone would feel facing a giant of this magnitude, clad in so much armor. The odds were overwhelmingly stacked against anyone who dared to fight him. In a bold challenge to the Israelite army, Goliath stood up and shouted, "Why do you come out and line up for battle? Are we not Philistines and Saul's servants? Bring me a champion. If he kills me, we'll surrender to you." Samuel 17:8-9. Goliath suggested a form of combat that was commonly used in Eastern cultures, where he would represent the Philistine army and Israel would choose a representative for their army. The losing representative's entire army would perish. However, it would not be necessary to involve the entire army in this, as just one fighter could be sent to face Goliath. He was confident in his victory and claimed to be the best. For over a month, Goliath would flaunt his size and strength every morning and evening, daring someone to challenge him. According to 1 Samuel 17:16, meanwhile, in the Judean mountains near Bethlehem, a young boy named David was tending to his father's sheep. Being too young to join the army, David may not have even heard of Goliath. He only knew that his older brothers were serving in Saul's army. Following his father's orders, David rose early in the morning and left the sheep with the keeper. As he approached the Israeli camp, he saw troops ready for combat and heard their war cry. He wanted to watch the battle, so he left his belongings with the baggage handler and ran to join his brothers. David hurried to the battlefield and asked his brothers how they were doing. In the book of Samuel 17:22-23, we see David engaged in conversation with his peers when suddenly Goliath, the champion of the Philistines from Gath, emerges from his side of the battlefield and begins to shout his usual taunts. Among all those present, David is the first to hear his cries. The scene is set on the 41st day of battle, and while the rest of the Israelite army cowers in fear at the sound of Goliath's voice, David is not aware of the giant's challenge. Looking across the valley, he sees a towering figure clad in armor, hurling insults and daring any man to come to face him. This sight enrages David. Addressing his troops, David asks, "What reward will be given to the man who kills this Philistine and restores the honor of Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" These words are recorded in 1 Samuel 17:26-27. In the biblical tale that can be found in 1 Samuel 17:32-40, Saul gives David the order to set forth and reassures him that the Lord would be by his side. After that, Saul proceeded to outfit David in his own clothing, which included a coat of armor and a bronze helmet. David was also given a sword. However, David thought the clothing to be too burdensome, so he decided to wear the clothing that was typical of a shepherd instead. He also decided to arm himself with his sling and staff, in addition to collecting 5 smooth stones from a stream in the area. As the narrative progresses, we learn that the Philistine warrior approached David while accompanied by a shield bearer. When the Philistine saw David's young age and apparent lack of combat experience, he made fun of him by calling him a dog and threatening to give his body to wild animals. He also referred to David as a coward. This decisive moment laid the groundwork for the famous triumph that David would go on to achieve with nothing more than a sling and a few stones against the fearsome foe. A tale of David, who defeated a strongly armored adversary using little more than a sling and some stones, may be found in the book of 1 Samuel. David just needed one stone to win the fight against the mighty Goliath because he was able to bring him down with a single fast shot. After Goliath was vanquished, David proceeded to steal the Philistine's sword and kill him, which ultimately resulted in the retreat of the enemies. The Israelites celebrated their victory and then followed the Philistines, dispersing the Philistines' dead along the road leading to Shaaraim. David turned into a legend according to his kin because of the bold deeds he committed, and he was respected for his courage. The story of David and Goliath, which portrays the last option's loss on account of the previous, keeps on being rehashed and retold even in current times. The narrative of David should serve as a motivation for all of us to aspire to have virtues such as unflinching faith and unyielding tenacity. He exhibited confidence in his own ability despite the fact that others undervalued him. This served as a lesson for us to never underestimate our own capabilities. David's victory against Goliath, who was proud and overconfident, was made possible in large part by David's humility and his confidence in God. The example that David sets for us to face adversities with a humble heart and confidence in a higher power is one that we can all learn from. This story of David and Goliath is one that has endured throughout the ages because it exemplifies the qualities of courage, tenacity, and faith in the face of adversity. It acts as a reminder that we can overcome enormous difficulties and achieve our goals if we are devoted to what we are trying to do and place our confidence in both ourselves and a higher power. David, who relied on the guidance of the Lord rather than weapons of battle, was successful in rendering Goliath weak and defeating him during the fight. David previously took out the Philistine by striking him in the brow with a solitary stone, and afterward, he cut off the Philistine's head with the sword that Goliath had used to kill Goliath. The Philistines were driven to flight as a result of this tragedy because of their fear. After that, the Israelites attacked the Philistine camp while also pursuing them all the way to the entrances of Gath and Ekron. David brought the head of Goliath as a prize back to Jerusalem with him, together with the other weapons that had belonged to the Philistines. The account of David and Goliath is quite possibly the most notable story in the book of scriptures. It is meant to serve as an example of bravery, faith, and the capacity to overcome challenges that at first glance appear to be insurmountable. Goliath was a Gittite from Gath, and some people think that he was either a Nephilim or a Rephite. It's possible that his ancestry was one of the factors that led to his towering size. The narrative of David and Goliath illustrates both the immense strength of God and his capacity to triumph over his foes, despite the fact that the circumstances may appear to be quite challenging. It teaches us that even in the face of hardship of a large magnitude, the Almighty Creator will protect us and equip us with the fortitude to conquer any difficulties that come our way.